Hello, Assalamu Alaikum. Good evening. Welcome to another episode of Health is Wealth. I am your host, Shabnam Riaz. Okay, today we have, a really interesting subject that we're going to talk about. Something that maybe many people might not know about. And the topic today is healthy housing. So how many people, when they, there's lots of construction going on in Pakistan, and when you are constructing a house or getting one made, how many people are mindful of the impact that the building will have and the layout of the building or your home and what it's going to do to your health? So for today's topic, we have with us in the studios Mr. Jamshaid Khan, who is an architect. Thank you very much, Mr. Jamshaid Khan, for joining us here today. Okay, now your subject is very interesting. Tell us how building a house, a home, or any structure can impact our health. What is the relation?
Thank you, Shabnam. It's a very important question, especially nowadays, because nowadays people are making their houses in a lot of houses you see. And I think we have to understand what features are required, especially for the health, for during the construction and during the planning of the house. Now it's a very scientific thought, and the requirement of the discipline has become very scientific nowadays. For example, if I talk in a layman language, fresh air is the need for the good health.
Absolutely.
Light, sun rays, sunlight is also the need for the good health. And we have to appreciate these natural lights, natural air inside the building. Even we are willing to develop our office, even we are constructing our house, even we are doing a mega scale projects. These are the features which must be considered by the architect in all their projects.
Right. And is this something that, architecture and the healthy housing, sort of, the aspect of it, is it something that is done on a norm, or is it this, specialized?
Shabnam, actually, from last 30 years, what I observed, there was a little bit some copy-paste in architecture. When we talk about the indigenous architecture in Dhyat villages, so we find some sort of intellect or wisdom, folk wisdom in the buildings, in their houses. So these houses mostly are built as per their local requirement for their kettles, for their bawarchi khana kitchen. So
and the weather.
They specially arrange their rooms around the corridor.
Right.
So all their rooms are well lit, well airy, and they are well connected in family. The people are well connected to each other. So these it's a very wide subject. During this discussion, I'll explain a few more things to you, and I would like to say that nowadays what we are following, the layout of the house is not related to our requirements. We are for
commercial.
Yes, it's a commercial, it's a copy paste, it's a westernized. It is not as per our cultural and local requirements.
Okay, so as you very rightly pointed out here, when we're designing a house or a home and we're getting it built, we may have other things in mind. As you said, a commercial basis, we may be looking to rent out the building. But then at the end of the day, it's still your house that you're making. So whoever is going to live there should be able to have a good atmosphere, a good environment. So what are the basic things that people need to look out for when they are?
I would like to give some little brief to you, little history. For example, 17th century or 18th century was the century of scientific development, and 19th century was the century of industrial development. I observed that this is the century of insecurities. Every person is insecure when he is he is in a phase of construction for his house. He is insecure. So he think about the rental income, he think about the resale value. So these things make the house commercial basis. They design and they construct their house on commercial basis.
Right.
So we have to understand that it is the house, not the shop, not the office. It's the house that must be contain some housing feature, residential features in it.
Okay, we'll come back to the conversation. Don't change the channel. We're going for a break. Welcome back to the programme, and thank you for not changing the channel, because we have a really, really interesting subject today that we're talking about. Now, Jamshaid, tell us, what is the difference, as we're talking about healthy housing, and not many people are very familiar with the concept. What is the difference between those who are living and working in sort of natural light, natural air, as opposed to those living with unnatural light and air?
Exactly. Shabnam, actually, what is the meaning of healthy house? Basically, you are finding good views, natural views, you are finding natural air, you are finding natural light inside your house. So these are the features are very important, as like food. If you are taking a good food but you are not taking a fresh air and your eyes are not watching good views, so bad views are also a pollution. So if you are watching only the geyser of the neighborhood, so it will affect psychologically and health-wise on your health. So you have to develop the views during your design, during your construction. You can develop a simple some creepers on the boundary wall to hide those geysers and servant rooms of the neighborhood, and some dark areas of the neighbor building. So these are very important and sensitive things during the design and the construction.
Okay.
And you asked the second question, what is the difference between those people who are working in the natural light and those who are working in the active source, like Wabda's kind of lighting? So those people, it is observed and concluded in the world that those people who are working in natural light in the offices, their performance is better than those people who are working in the non-natural artificial lighting.
Okay, such a huge
it
difference.
It is concluded and it is very scientifically concluded.
Okay, okay. Now, what about kids and adults too, who are living in overpopulated and congested areas as compared to otherwise?
Simply, a flower which is developed in an open area and which is developed in a balcony and very congested area, that will make a difference because of their size, because of their freshness, because of its color. So I'm very much concerned about the health of kids. Those kids are living in congested areas like Androon Shahar, and those people and kids are living in open areas. There is a major difference in their psychological health and their physical health. So in urban side, during development of the urban areas and designing of the urban areas, we have considered to give them lot of parks, play areas, and some green areas. So those people who are not finding in their neighborhood these kind of facilities, that will affect their psychological and physical health.
Right, at the end of the day. Okay. Now, of course, constructing a building or a home, a house, the first thing you need is land.
Exactly.
So how many people are making an intelligent choice when it comes to acquiring land, and what should they look for when they're buying a plot?
First of all, the land must be owned by a person. It's very important. The location, whenever you go for a property and some plot, for a house, for commercial activity, location does matter.
It does.
And that makes the price difference when you're talking about the location of the plot and the location of the area for your house or for your any kind of building. And the second thing, when we are talking about small houses for 5 marlas, 3 marlas, we don't find much opportunity to place and to arrange them because you have no option. You have little option and to make them sun-oriented or not. But when you find a bigger plot and you have an opportunity to place your building in the plot and you can twist it and you can place it, then we can talk about there is no need for the orientation much because you have an opportunity to place your building on the plot. But when we are talking about the small plots, 3 marlas and 5 marlas, then you are restricted. Then that is better that if you are going to construct your house in hot areas like Punjab, so that must be oriented towards south.
Right.
It's better. And we are talking about small plots, and when you are going to construct your house in northern areas, then that must be facing towards south must.
Right.
I would like to add some indigenous intellect in this debate. Whenever you pass through a motorway, when you are driving on a motorway, you find village houses from your left side on your right side, and you watch that most of the houses, 90% houses, face south orientation they have. Why south orientation? Because in summer the altitude of the sun is higher, from 61 degree to approximate 80 degree. So in south, when you create a corridor, you find shadow before your rooms, and you find a shadow of your house behind the back courtyard. And you find their cattle in the back courtyard under the shadow of the building. So it's a indigenous intellect or folk intellect wisdom you find in villages.
Exactly.
So
wisdom passing over the ages.
Exactly. And the same thing, I appreciate the planning of the small houses in Indus Valley. They all houses have their central courtyard open to sky in all their houses.
And also that does promote a sort of a feeling of well-being, doesn't it? You know, when a person says that you want to get out of the house, literally getting out of the house means just removing yourself from being inside those 4 walls and the roof. So that does make a huge difference.
I would like to add a thing which is a little bit, you can say it's an observation. 20 years back, we, on TV dramas, we find the conflict of neighborhood from the courtyard wall. But now in our literature, we find the family conflicts because they don't have any courtyard to ask and to discuss their matters with their neighborhood.
That's true. That's true. And in fact, the whole image of the courtyard is, you know, sitting there, the family getting together and having their conversation on how the day went. It's also a very important part of the social structure of the family.
Nowadays, I'm an architect and I feel that we are making the houses for the TV boxes.
That's very true. Or robotic.
Why I'm saying this, that we are building our houses for the TV boxes, because the advice which we got from our elders and entertainment which we got from our kids, nowadays the advice and the entertainment is only delivered by TV channels. So we have ignored the importance of the family.
That is such an important point you're making.
And we are making our houses, we are constructing our houses for the living rooms and the TV boxes.
And that is such an important point. I mean, the point that Jamshaid is making right now is that what do we have in mind when we're actually designing something, and what needs are we thinking of that we want to be met? So family orientation and, keeping in view the fact that this should be a healthy environment for children to grow up in as well. Okay, now what about windows, their sizes and the height of ceilings and things like that? How much of that difference does that make?
It's a little bit technical, but I would like to share some thumb rules, not very scientific. I can share with the layman and the audience. The thumb rule is that 1/3 of the floor area must be the window area.
Okay.
For example, if your floor area is 300 square feet, the window must be 100.
Okay.
It's a very
it's a
general statement.
And the windows have to be at 7 feet with the doors, is that?
Basically, economics comes in it. 7-foot door is economical door, and it gives a very reasonable height for all kind of persons like me. A tall person can easily move.
Right.
But nowadays there is a trend for the 8-foot high doors.
Okay, right.
But it's economically little bit expensive.
Okay.
Or it's a trend. It's very trendy now.
And
architecture is trendy.
Yes, exactly, depending on requirements. So, what does the impact of the window have then in the house, and what size should it be? Is it all?
It's very rational and logical. If you are your window is facing some lawn area, some open area, that must be bigger, more than 1/3, and must be 100%. And if you are your window is facing neighborhood, some dark areas, but you need some window there, some security point of view, some light point of view, some little bit air direction point of view, that can be little in size, not in 1/3 of the floor area. It's very rational approach to when you are designing and when you are making a planning of the building or your any house. It's very rational. You must be rational.
Right, okay. Now let's talk about, areas where people are living in apartments, high-rise buildings. What effect can that have on your health? And when they are being designed, what requirements should they have as well?
It's very important, and I am too much involved in multi-story buildings, alhamdulillah, but I would like to share my observations that we have to declare some plots for the residential apartments or some areas. Okay. I'm against mixed-use projects. For example, if you are making 2-3 floors for the commercial activity, and then you are making some 10 floors or 5 floors for the residential activity, I'm worried about the future of those kids who are living in these kind of situation and environment, that they are, whenever they come down from the stairs and elevators, they find a market. They are not finding grounds, they are not finding play areas, they are finding market. So these kids, I observe, are very demanding from to their parents. Because all the
every time they're entering and exiting.
Exact, in the market, and they find lot of new stuff and they want to purchase. So those kids are demanding kids.
Right.
So, I think for the residential apartment buildings, we have to define these are the residential apartment buildings. There is no commercial area.
Right. Okay.
And in different floors, by law, we have to establish some green areas, some play areas for those kids who are 6 months, 1 year, and 2 years old. Those can't come down without their parents. So they need some play area on their floors.
Absolutely.
If they are living in 6th floor, so how many times you tell me mother can come with their kids to the ground floor?
Of course.
So we have to think on it, for the improvement of the bylaws in authorities. We have to discuss it, that there must be some area on every floor for the kids, for the old people who are retired and want to read their newspaper in the light, natural light in evening. So they must find some area on their floor to sit with their age group. So this kind of interaction can be developed through architecture, and it is developed last years. So now we are missing it in our buildings.
We need to incorporate
yes,
that.
Yes,
need to incorporate that. Okay. So, you know, as we mentioned at the beginning of the program, we said that, you know, many homes, houses are being constructed with a commercial point of view. Okay, that's fine. You know, it's everyone's prerequisite what they want to do. What about, you know, covering? We see a lot of houses now being covered, the maximum area being concreted or marble floors or whatever, you know, more parking space, more cars being accommodated. What do you say to people who do have the space and can afford it and would rather have a concrete or a sort of a built-in area than a garden? What do you usually advise them?
There are two questions, actually. The first question, people are designing their societies for the cars.
Another
and
very
designing
important.
their houses for television.
That is so true, and we don't think of that, do we?
In the back of the mind, we don't. These things are working, but we are consciously are not focusing on.
Often, when people go to buy houses or rent a house, you will often hear people saying, you know, okay, not enough parking space. Will the cars?
And what about the living room for the TV?
Yeah,
these are the two major concerns.
That's so true. So, what do you advise them when you know they sit down and consult with you?
We don't need to reinvent the wheel. Wheel is invented thousand years back. So if we want to make something which is for our climate, for our weathers, for our living styles, that is done by Indus Valley. Right. Lot of work is done by Indus Valley in their houses. Central Courtyard, I'm talking about Central Courtyard. Yet where you are watching the cloud.
What we call a sehen.
Yes, sehen. Yeah. And you are watching the sky, you are enjoying the rainy season, you are enjoying the fog, you are enjoying the moon.
Night spent outside under the stars.
And that courtyard, if there is a small house and a large house, you can make some landscape there. Not on a very large scale, but the landscape, a little two planters can change your visual, can change your psychological health, can change your physical health.
Absolutely.
So we have to make our direction on these lines. But I am trying my best, but it's very difficult for me also. I am a practicing architect, but I find a lot of effort to break the mindset of the people.
So how do you do that?
I'm talking on it. I'm debating on it. I'm very much involved in these kind of discussions to break this kind of covered concrete jungle kind of mind frame by debate, by discussions, by some arrangements, conferences. I'm trying my best to do what I can do.
Fantastic.
It is very difficult for me to convince the people. The people come to me for the designing of the house. I try to explain these kind of all points, but at the end they
do what they want.
Jamshaid Saab, we like to make this kind of house, this type of living room, this kind of parking.
Right.
So, but my job is to educate.
Of course.
First. And I'm very much optimistic that people will come, but it will take little time. And it's a collective effort through architects, by architects. It's a collective effort, and the need to be educated people by these kind of programs.
Absolutely.
Through your people.
Yeah.
You people are asking questions, some people are watching our program.
Definitely, and they will pick up on the idea.
Exactly.
Because the main thing, as you just said, the main thing is awareness. Many people are not aware of this fact. I mean, you go to buy a house and usually it's the aesthetics that, that attract you, or you know, you'll think that, you know, this is okay for our accommodation, the needs of our family. But then at the end of the day, we again do not place enough priority on our health. And, you know, it's said time and time over again that health is your biggest blessing. You have good health and you'll enjoy everything. You'll enjoy the best house. You'll enjoy everything. If you don't have your health, then you know, a palace will be irrelevant for you.
I would like to share my experience that mostly people come to me from for the designing of their house are above 50.
Okay.
Because in Pakistan you make or some arrangement for the house economically near 50.
Right.
But it's very difficult for me that they are preconceived. They want to make their houses what they have experienced.
Imagined or dreamed or...
Yes, they don't think beyond those boundaries.
Okay.
So it's very difficult to break their mindset because they have visited their uncle's house, they have lived 20 years or 10 years in a house which has no option for the fresh air, no views, no light. But they were actually the reasons people are not understanding still now that health is related to architecture is very much, and we have to incorporate natural features
versus artificial.
And exactly
right
in architecture.
Right, that is so
it's
important.
not a concrete box. If people who are making concrete box, they have to answer the public now or after few years.
Absolutely.
Because in a very fast pace, people are getting aware.
That's so true. Okay, now we're going for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back to the programme. Well, we've had a really informative episode today. We're having at the moment, actually, with Mr. Jamshaid Khan, who has been talking with us about, you know, healthy housing. And right now we've been joined by Maruf Mustansar, who's a consultant clinical psychologist. Maruf, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've spoken a lot with Jamshaid about, you know, the design of a house and what it means to a person's health and what a person should have in mind when they're getting a house built. Tell us about, you know, light, fresh air and the natural elements that we need to incorporate in our houses and what that actually means scientifically. So how does that affect you on a psychological basis?
Well, environment affects a lot when we talk about psychological perspective. Talking about the architect, the construction of certain buildings and houses, it actually affects on our mindsets. While you're talking about the color scheming and all the building stuff, that is basically the more congested a building is, a more tunnel vision a person can think. There's a very famous psychologist, Dr. Sultan, who has done research. She's a PhD doctor and she has done research on this environmental psychology. There she made a conclusion that children who live in a congested area, they cannot properly read or write. And if we talk about old age people, now the old age people, they do not like to socialize that much.
Yeah.
So it is good for old age people when we are talking about that cramped and that you know, short spaced buildings. It's good for them to socialize, but when it comes to youngsters and children, it's not cognitively healthy for them.
Right.
And it can lead to the antisocial behavior as well and more into the isolation that can further and eventually cause aggression in them.
Okay, right. Jamshaid, tell us, how can we manage a small space? Because, I mean, of course, the economic factor is there.
Exactly.
So people who are living in small spaces, what can they do to make the illusion of a place being a bit less crowded?
If we can, first of all, we have to work on a color scheme.
Right.
Light colors.
As Mark said. Right.
If there is possible to make the window larger. Sometimes in old houses there was a trend of small windows, but you have an area where you can increase the size of the window. That must be you have to do first. And second, if you have some little balcony, try to make them green. And small pots for the greenery arrange in the room or in the balcony. So these are the very little and economical efforts you can do for the betterness or well-being.
I would like to add one point over here. Green color, as he mentioned, well, that is really very important for this, mindset of individual, because green color symbolizes peace. And mostly in our meditative techniques, and especially in MCBT, we prefer to have more like green paintings on the walls, so that it can have a peaceful effect. And red colors, basically, red color generates more like a communicative patterns among the individuals. So color indeed has a lot of influence on your mindset and psyche.
Okay, so could you explain that what color would have sort of what effect on your mood? If somebody's looking to reinvent their house or redo the bedroom or the living room.
Yeah, color basically affect your mood swings a lot. And it does have a huge influence on your moods and tantrums as well. Well, it varies from individual to individual. Few people love to have a red color on their walls, but still it depends. As far as the color psychology is concerned, red color basically promotes communication.
Okay.
And when we talk about blue color, that is more like a soulful color. When we talk about yellow color, that is when you're bringing out the happiness, the communication of happiness. Okay. So they basically generate few sort of emotions in an individual, but still it depends upon an individual that in which color do they feel appropriately, suitable for the environment.
Right, okay. Jamshaid, tell us, where does Pakistan stand when we talk about architectural design as compared to the international countries?
There is a book, Time Saving Standards Internationally. It is recommended and developed by senior architects, not 1, 2, 3, 100 architects worked in it. And it is the time saving standard. We have to follow it. But the dilemma is that mostly people don't go to architect, they go to the draftsman and ask him to design a building, and they have seen in some internet.
A replica.
So a replica kind of approach, and some basically my consultant, she has told about it that people are not willing towards open vision, the tunnel vision, and they don't want to listen about something which is innovative. They are insecure what people will say, this kind of house.
Right.
They don't want to break that mindset and that elevation they are seen from last 10-20 years.
Absolutely.
Absolutely true. Okay, Mark, we made a very, Jamshaid spoke about something that I thought was really interesting. He said that we are designing our houses to accommodate the television and to accommodate the car, as opposed to, thinking of the family units and what would be a conducive environment for them. What are your views on that?
Well, these days, people are more into micro living, I must say. Micro living is not about how many people per square foot. Rather, what I personally feel like, that do they have a natural view? Because if you don't have the natural view, if you can't see nature around you, you cannot feel mentally happy, healthy, and peaceful. we need to have that greenery, that serenity around us, no matter how your house is being constructed, but we need to keep these points in our view, that if we are constructing our house, it should have windows, open windows, so that the fresh air should be there, because usually in most of the psychological techniques that we basically practice on our patients, that is PMRT, progressive muscle relaxation technique, and meditation as well, CBT, MCBT. There are various psychotherapeutic techniques that we apply on patients, and we prefer that if it could be done in the natural environment, because that basically helps in cognitive development. Also, you can make your cognition more healthier, and you can make your mind more peaceful, because serenity is important.
Very important.
Exactly. And apart from serenity, the peaceful environment, the nature is important.
Yeah, as you've mentioned, the peaceful environment, the serenity and everything. Stress seems to be a number one problem for everyone in their lives.
Absolutely.
So how can you sort of make the interior of your house and your living less stressful?
Well, you can have a sunroom. And in sunroom, you can actually meditate. And there are a few techniques of meditation. But, having an appropriate environment, like being a psychologist, even my office is not like a clinic. It's like an office, the proper office, the comfortable office, the cozy environment. So that when a client is coming to me in a stressful condition, he should feel relaxed.
And calm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So same is the case when you're constructing your house or constructing anything. You need to have that area which can have, the natural environment, the natural scenery around you, and you can feel peaceful.
Absolutely. Okay, damp and moldy houses. What are they, you may buy a house and not know that it has this problem, and then how can you deal with them, and what are the sort of techniques?
First, Shabnam, I would like to second ma'am. Basically, it's a matter of environment.
Yeah.
And there are two types of environment: natural environment and built environment.
Right.
Natural environment always supports your health, psychological health and physical health. But when we are talking about built environment, that must be designed scientifically nowadays, especially because it is directly related to your psychological and physical health.
Yeah.
How can you develop built environment? Again, bring natural light, air, view inside the building. Use of materials. What materials you are using to build your house, to build your building, and what colors, again,
as Madhu said.
What is the color scheme?
Yeah, makes a huge difference.
How you are using the active source of light inside the building.
Absolutely.
For example, if you are installing the fancy lighting in our living room, that can be direct or diffused. But in a bedroom, light must be diffused.
Of course, of course.
Source must be hidden.
That brings to a very important point. Madhu, how many, in our society, do we make the difference between the bedroom and the living room? It's sort of like everybody's living out of their bedroom.
Absolutely.
All the eating and the talking and everything, and
And apart from this environment, I must mention over here that people are more, finding their relaxation more in the technology rather than in in their houses, and in having a proper and appropriate sleep in a proper cozy environment. They're more into the in the social media stuff, and they find like relaxation in all these stuff.
And leading to insomnia.
Exactly, insomnia plus. It can also lead to stress and also depression as well. If you are too much focusing on artificial things, it can actually lead to that. Right. So we need to have such kind of things in our home where we can have the natural environment, especially the sunroom, as I mentioned, because it can promote the peace of mind, which we all need in today's era, because of so many stresses going on.
Absolutely
so
true.
We need to have that thing in our home.
Right, okay. Unfortunately, we've run out of time.
Yeah.
Madhu Mustaza, thank you so much for joining us. And it's been wonderful talking to you. Jamshaid Khan as well, thank you so much for your expertise. And it has been fabulous having you on the show. Okay, with that we come to the end of today's programme. I mean, I have learnt so much. I'm going to go home and buy lots of potted plants and, you know, change the environment as well. It does make such a difference. So many times we've said, you know, we're at home and we feel down, we want to get out of the house. What does it mean by getting out of the house? To be in a natural environment. So keep that in mind whenever you're purchasing, buying or renting a house. Until next week, stay happy, stay healthy. Bye-bye.